Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky. I'll be your host for the next 2 weeks. Whether you like me or not, you're stuck with me until next Friday. But I hope you're all doing well. If you are joining me live this morning or afternoon or even in midnight in India, throw your name in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. I'm streaming live right now from lovely Los Angeles. And we're going to kick things off. Usually we do a kickoff stream on Monday, but because we had Labor Day in the US yesterday, we kind of got pushed back a little bit. So we're going to be combining the first challenge and the introduction all into one half an hour show, which is going to be tough, but we're going to do it. We're going to prevail, right? Before I begin, I do want to send my thoughts to everyone in the Bahamas. Hurricane came through over the weekend, and everyone in Florida and on the East Coast, definitely, be prepared for anything. It looks like it's curving away, but be prepared. I have a lot of family over there, so they're all ready to go if necessary. But a big hello to Michael from Germany, and Ed, and Jesse, and Marissa. Marissa Blair, welcome. Haven't seen you in a while, but awesome to see you again. Marissa, if you're brand new to the XD Daily Challenges, Marissa provided a lot of the templates for some of the previous challenges, and she was also a great host a while back. So nice to see you, Marissa. And Ariana, and CL, and Tim, and Jose, and another Marissa. Awesome to see everyone from also Norway and Mexico, Pakistan, Florida. Be safe over there in Florida. Kentucky, awesome. All right, so because we have a limited amount of time today, I'm gonna hop over to my desktop and we're gonna just dive into things. So this is the landing page for the XD Daily Creative Challenge. You can find it up here, behance.net/challenge/XD. We also have a Photoshop challenge going on that was kicked off this morning by Jesus Ramirez. And this is kind of what you're going to see. If you're brand new to the challenge, you haven't registered yet, you're going to see this big blue button at the top. Definitely press that big blue button if you want to get notified through the Creative Cloud desktop app of new challenges. And every single morning we do release a new challenge Monday to Friday at 8 o'clock. So again, every day you're going to receive a challenge. You're going to join us, or you can join us in the community chat, which I would definitely recommend. We have a great community going on. And here's Discord over here. We have almost 20,000 people in Discord. That's a lot of people. And everyone's nice. Everyone's just super nice. They're super helpful. We've got a great section that admins can post new challenges in. Sam posted this morning. If we're live, we'll definitely post it in here. You can find new features in XD, pro tips by some of the mentors and people from Adobe, and feedback for current and past challenges. You just dump it in here. As you start completing some of these challenges, like you're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks, throw it in here. We've got some great mentors, including Chris Cannon, Joss and Peter, Tim, Marissa. It's just a good time. If you have questions about XD or if you want to share tips and tricks, there's just a ton of different channels. You can dive in there, have a good time, share some feedback, introduce yourself. Just have fun. And 20,000 people, that's crazy. All right, so what else is going on? Every morning, afternoon, wherever it is you are, at 11:30 Pacific time, you're going to join me to kick off whatever that challenge is. You can ask questions, whatever it is, just type some stuff in there, say hello, and then get some inspiration. And then finally down here we have the challenges. So day 1 is going to unlock today, which it did, and then as the challenge progresses, we're going to have day 2, day 3, day 4, so on and so forth. And if you want to catch up on older challenges, if you scroll all the way down here, we now have older challenges. And we just updated, I believe, this morning, or yesterday, or sometime in the last few days to include the previous challenge, which is super cool. Fiend from Belgium, awesome, welcome. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dive into things. But before I do that, I wanna shout out a website that I built. Little shameless self-promotion, I'm gonna throw it out there. But if you're brand new to Adobe XD, never used it before, these challenges are a great start. But you can also go to letsxd.com. There's videos on designing, prototyping, sharing, some advanced tips and tricks if you're transitioning from Sketch or you just want to use your Sketch projects to really prototype in XD. You can learn all about that here. There's some UI kits you can grab. It's good stuff. All right. Now, for today's challenge, we are going to be tackling a presentation timer. And this was kind of inspired by an application many of us use at Adobe called Timer with Sections. You can get that on the App Store. It's $1.99, totally worth it. However, it's a great application, but the UI isn't the greatest. It's got these vibrant green screen greens and these vibrant reds. And, you know, again, it's a fantastic application. We use it, it's fantastic, but it needs some help, right? So what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be tackling a very basic version of a timer with sections using Adobe XD. And the one that I'm gonna be designing is gonna be a little bit basic because we only have about 20 minutes left, but I really encourage you to go crazy with this. You know, mock up what all these different screens look like, mock up what various interactions might look like, add some prototyping, and just go crazy with it. So I'm gonna hop over to Adobe XD, and I'm going to start by creating a new document. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I have the template. I have the template which I downloaded, which I forgot to open. Terrible. There we go. Here's the template. Aha, I knew I was forgetting something. I always forget something. But we've got our template here. All right, so let me zoom in here. We've got our daily creative challenge. We've got our prompt to design a presentation timer with sections for mobile or desktop. So if you feel comfortable, you don't want to do mobile, you can do desktop, you can do tablet, whatever it might be that you want. And if you really want to get crazy with it, you can also add some additional functionality. You can animate your design, add up your points, spread the word, and we've got some inspiration down here and some resources as well. So what I'm going to be doing is, and Tim says, but you're right, UI is boring if you design boring interfaces. Yeah, so, you know, the interface could use a bit of work, but again, the application's great, so that's really all that matters, right? But a little bit of a touch-up could. So I'm not gonna drastically change the design, but I'm gonna add a few nice colors here and there. So I'm gonna grab my Artboard tool over here to the left. I'm gonna press on that. And then I have a bunch of different artboards over here to the right. I'm gonna go for the iPhone 10, 10s, and the only reason I'm doing that, you can of course design for Android or whatever other device you want, but the reason I'm doing that is because I do have an iPhone 10, so if I do want to prototype this and preview this directly on my iPhone, either wirelessly through the Creative Cloud app or directly connected with USB, I can definitely do that, and it'll make a little bit more sense when I'm viewing it on a artboard that I've designed specifically for that device. Alrighty, so here we go. We're gonna get started, and we're gonna start very basic. We're going to create a lovely gradient in the background because who doesn't love gradients? I love gradients, right? So I've got my artboard selected, and over here to the right, I can choose a solid color for my background if I wanted to. I can choose, like, let's say a nice blue right about here. Or if I want to get a little bit crazy, I can also add a gradient. So I can click on the drop down here, choose linear gradient, and now I have a gradient going from top to bottom, but I can also just move this around like this. I can pull this up a little bit if I wanted to, make it nice and diagonal. And maybe the one at the bottom is gonna be a little bit lighter. So I'll just lighten this up just a touch, go for something like this. And of course I can tweak this later if I wanted to, but that looks like a pretty nice gradient. We don't have too much banding going on. Looks pretty good. All right, so we've got our gradient. And now the main thing that's part of this app is some sort of a timer in the middle, some sort of a progress indicator. And the one over here is a little bit busy. I totally get what's going on. They have, you can kind of track where you are in the progress, but I want to simplify this just a little bit. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, again from the toolbar to the left, or I can use the shortcut key E, and I'm going to simply drag one out just like this. So I've got this nice circle going on in my artboard. Now, I could go ahead and use this as, just completely fill it in, but I'm going to actually just use a border. So I'm going to turn off the fill over here to the right, set the border to white, and then just really increase the size. So I'm just holding down my shift key and just pump this up a little bit, just like that. That looks pretty good. Now this one's going to be kind of the what's left of the presentation. So this one in particular, I'm going to turn down the opacity to, let's say, 20%. I can always adjust that later on. And now I want another circle that's kind of telling me where I am, how much time I've already taken up. So I'm going to duplicate this, Command and Control D, boop, there we go. And you might not notice much of a difference, but I'm going to increase the opacity. And now I have, oops, did I not do it? Command and Control D, there we go. Now I have two ellipses, my bad. Now for this one, I don't necessarily want the entire thing filled in. Now there is a mathematical equation you can do to adjust the dash and the gap to make it like 20%, 30%. But you know what? I'm just gonna experiment. I'm going to do this. I also want to make sure that the one in the background is set to 20%. Now we can see both of them, right? And now I'm just going to adjust things. I'm just holding down Shift, clicking on things until I get a nice, maybe I'll just drop that a little bit. Nope, maybe increase that. Look at that. Look at the thing just filling up like that. Isn't that cool? Ooh, there we go. So just experiment. And again, there is a mathematical equation, but I'm going to leave it at this because, you know, it works. And I'm not too concerned about 20% or 30%. Now I might also want these corners over here to be a little bit rounded, right? So what I'm going to do is over here to the right, I'm simply going to press this one here, which is going to round out my caps just like that. And now I have nice rounded ends to my circle. Perfect. All right, now in the center, what I need to do, I just opened up Photoshop for some reason. There we go, quit that. All right. We need some text to let us know what section we're on, and we also need to know how much time is remaining. So I'm gonna grab my text tool, shortcut key T, and type out, let's say, introduction, just like that. That's a little bit too large, so I'm gonna grab the little handle, bring it inwards. Perfect. I'm using the font Poppins, but of course you're free to use any font you want, unless it's Papyrus. Probably don't use Papyrus, but you know, if you want to get really crazy with it, use Papyrus. Whatever, have fun. So I got that. I'm going to duplicate this downwards, holding down Alt-Option, and let's say this is 2 minutes and 14 seconds left remaining. Remaining. There we go. And I might want to center this and make sure both of these are nicely centered. Perfect. All right, so what I'm going to do now is we've got this set up. Maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller, just like this. Perfect. We've got our top section set up, and that basically shows us that we are in our introduction phase or section, and we have 2 minutes and 14 seconds remaining. Now, to not clutter up this top section like the official app has, I might want some of the upcoming sections down here at the bottom, right? And CL is suggesting Comic Sans. You can definitely use that as well if you want to get a little bit wild with your design. So maybe down here at the bottom, I'm going to put all the upcoming sections. So again, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, draw something out just like this. I might want the the corners rounded a little bit. So I'm going to grab on these, just drag them in quite a bit, but I don't want the bottom corners rounded. So what I can do in this case is hold down Alt-Option and just drag down the bottom corners, just like this and like this. So just to affect those ones, or I can also do that in the Property Inspector over to the right. All right, I'm going to turn off the border. And now I have this section at the bottom, which will house our upcoming section. So to do that, to make sure that we know exactly what that is, I'm going to just type out up next. And of course I need to change the color. Ooh, I also can't spell. Up next. There we go. I'll pop that here. Maybe I'll give this color a little bit of blue, just a touch of blue, just like that. It's hard to see, but you know, just a little bit of blue there. And now we might want to start using a repeat grid and components to create some of these additional sections. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, and this is where things get fun once you start introducing repeat grids, right? So I'm going to just do that and make sure everything lines up really nicely. I may want the borders to be a little bit rounded, just a touch, somewhere around right around 8 pixels. And maybe I'll sample one of the colors. I'll just press I on my keyboard and just sample this color just to do that. And we can always change that later on. So we've got our one section here, make this a little bit smaller. Perfect. All right, now in here we want a little bit of information. We want what section is coming up next. We also want how much time that section will take. So Roboto is a good font, yeah, definitely agree. So maybe this will be Foundations, right? And I'll make sure to left justify this, change this to white. We probably don't need bold. Let's go to semi-bold, and this definitely needs to be brought down quite a bit. Pop that there. Let's go for about 16 pixels from the left. And then we can duplicate this over to the right, and let's say this will take up 5 minutes. And we can maybe drop this down to medium and make sure to right justify it, and also drop this about 16 pixels from the right. All right, so we've got now our next section, but to make this a little bit easier to create additional sections, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to select the background and both text layers. You can either do that by holding down Shift and clicking on all of them, or just doing that in your layers panel. And with that done, I'm going to create a repeat grid, and I can do that easily by pressing the repeat grid button over to the right, or Command or Control R. Boop, there we go. All right, we've got a repeat grid, we've got a handle over to the right and one at the bottom, and I can simply just drag out some additional sections. We'll go with 3, and we'll have, let's say, 16 pixels in between. All right. Now with a repeat grid, you can definitely override your text. So I can just jump in here and demonstration, right? And this will maybe take up 8 minutes. And then we might want conclusion. Helps if I can spell. And this will take up, let's say, 3 minutes, right? So just like that, we've been able to create a very nice looking repeat grid with all of our different sections. However, what if we wanted to not necessarily, focus too much on some of these additional sections? Maybe as it kind of goes down, maybe the sections kind of fade away just a little bit, not too much. Now, if you were to do that with a repeat grid as it is right now, if I were to select this one and just drop the opacity a touch, you're going to notice it does it to all of them. And that's because when you edit a style or position within a repeat grid, it pushes it to all of the other ones. However, if we were to utilize components, we can kind of get around that and override a repeat grid. So I'm going to select the background layer of this entry in the repeat grid, and I'm going to simply turn the background layer into a component. So I'm going to right click and press Make Component. And this one here is the master. So if I do make changes to this particular component, it's going to push the changes to all of them. However, if I go to this one here, which is an instance of that component, I can now drop the opacity to, let's say, 70%, just like that. Perfect. I can go down to this one and drop it to, let's say, 40%. And now I have a nice gradient going down this repeat grid, and I don't have to worry about overriding things by mistake. However, the repeat grid still remains intact. So if I needed to make some changes, let's say I wanted this to be, maybe this text over here to be light, I can easily do that, and it still pushes it. So definitely, if you want to override a repeat grid, utilize components. It may not work very well if you're using images that you're dragging and dropping, so don't use it in that case. But if you're using icons that you might want to override, or backgrounds or things like that, definitely turn that stuff into a component. All right, so we've got that, and things are looking pretty good, right? We might want to make some layout changes to push this up just a little bit. We might also want to introduce some additional icons at the top, maybe a plus button to add a new section. And this is where you should really start to think about what you can do with an application like this. So I'm going to start adding maybe just a little bit of a plus button up here. Push this down because there is that notch at the top. Maybe turn off the border, drop this down to about 20%, and then in the center, I'm just going to add a little plus button. And maybe I'll make that a little bit semi-bold, possibly. That looks pretty good. Let's zoom in here, make sure it's centered. Beautiful. Let's see, maybe it could be a little bit larger. Let's go up to 22, possibly. There we go. Perfect. And then you can start thinking about what interactions would look like when you do press that plus button. And I'm going to also make sure to organize my artboard. So I'm going to group all these, Command and Control G, and this will be plus button. I can also turn this into a component with Command and Control K, just like I did before, if I want to make sure to use that throughout my document and keep things up to date. And you're going to notice they did add a plus button over here in my assets panel. I can do the same thing for any of these, and this will be the background section, background, right? Background, there we go. And back in my layers, I might want to also group some of this. So this will be current section. There we go. And maybe for one quick interaction, if you do want to add an additional section, let me go ahead and duplicate the artboard over to the right. So maybe when the plus button is pressed, an additional section might pop down here, right? But we of course don't want it to look exactly like that. You do want it to feel like you're adding something new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump in here, and I'm going to just copy this, right? I'm going to actually copy all of this stuff, copy. I'm going to paste it outside of the repeat grid because I want it right down here at the bottom. Make sure it's 16 pixels, just like all the other stuff. And maybe for this one, we might not want a background visible at all. So I'm going to turn off the background, and maybe I'll turn the border on with a little bit of a dash, just like this, right? Maybe turn down, maybe just like that. And then this and this, we're going to just change to a light gray, somewhere right around there. Oops, I moved it. There we go. And this will be section name, just so you know exactly what you have to do. And we will leave this 0, 0, 0, right? So basically, when you're adding new sections, this will kind of be what it looks like, but it's kind of hidden down there. So what you might want to do is you might want to animate this section to kind of move up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all this stuff down at the bottom. and simply just move this up so I can see the current section at the top and also this section at the bottom. However, you're noticing that we kind of need a little bit more room at the bottom of this shape. So I'm simply going to just drag this down, just like that, right? And I want to make sure to do the same thing for this one down at the bottom. Perfect. All right, so now that we have these two artboards set up, if you're brand new to Adobe XD, here's how to prototype this stuff. And thankfully, it's super simple. All you really have to do is focus on designing. So I'm gonna hop up here to the top. I'm gonna grab or hop into the prototype section, just like that, and not much has changed, right? So in this case, what you wanna do is select the element that you want a user to interact with. And in this case, it's our plus button. So I'm gonna select the plus button. We've got this blue handle. It's a little bit hard to see against the blue background, but there's a blue handle right there, and you can drag that to the artboard that it's going to transition to. So in this case, I'm gonna drag it to the second artboard. Now over here to the right, we have some interaction properties. So in this case, I do want a user to be able to tap on the plus button, and it's going to do something, right? It's going to perform an action. So in this case, instead of a transition, which will either cut to it, slide, or dissolve to it, what we want to do is select AutoAnimate. And what AutoAnimate is going to do is it's going to look at the differences between the two artboards, and it's going to animate those changes. So I have AutoAnimate selected. We'll do in and out. So it's a little bit slower at the beginning, a little bit slower at the end, and duration will start with 0.4, see what that looks like, right? Perfect. All right, so now all we had to do is just wire it up, choose a few properties, and now we're ready to go. So what I can do is I can press the play button at the top. We've got our prototype that popped up, and if I press the plus button, it slides up and our new section name has appeared, right? Now, there might be a few other things you might want. You might want to be able to dismiss this box or go to add a new section, right? Something like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add one more artboard over here to the right. And maybe within this time, I can hide this one, right? Hide all this stuff. And this one will actually add a new repeat grid entry. There we go. And this might be, let's go for party, because why not? And this will take 30 minutes. 30 minutes, right? And we'll just drop this down to about 20%. It's a little bit hard to see, but we will run with it. And I'm gonna select all the elements at the top, pull these back down, just like that. Make sure everything looks pretty good. Whoops. All right, so now when back in prototype mode, when someone clicks on this area here, drag this over, we're gonna use the exact same properties. So it'll be tap, AutoAnimate, we'll do in and out, that sort of thing. So now we can press the plus button, it slides up, press section name, and we've got our new section down at the bottom. Got a little half an hour party. But of course we might want one more if you don't want to add a new section, you just want to dismiss it. Maybe there'll be a little bit of an X or something. So I'll just put like a little X. It's a pretty ugly X, but we're gonna run with it for now. It's probably not how I would design it, but just for the sake of time, we've got our X, and we might want it inside of an ellipse, just so that there's a little bit more room to tap on. Doesn't have to be a visible ellipse, but it needs to be there just so it's not a tiny little area. I'm gonna group that and make this called close, right? So now in this case, back in prototype mode, I have that selected. I'm gonna wire this back to the first artboard, keep the same triggers, and here we go. So we've got our new timer with sections. We've got our current section at the top, introduction, 2 minutes and 14 seconds remaining. We got our additional sections that are coming up down at the bottom. We can press the plus button. We can close it if we wanted to. And of course, I would probably have that X on the previous artboard as well, so it doesn't do that weird transition. But we can also add a new section just like that. Now let me show you what that looks like. If I do add that, grab this, copy, make sure to pop it over here. There we go, just like that. So now at this case, it just slides up. And of course I can make it turn down the opacity, slide this up, slide it down, and there we go. So that will just about wrap it up for today. Again, hop over to behance.net/challenge/XD. You can find all the information about these daily creative challenges on this page. As you progress through this challenge, make sure to hop into Discord so you can share your work in the current challenge section, and there'll be a lot of mentors in there giving you lots of feedback. And as we progress through this challenge, the challenges will get a little bit harder, more in depth. We'll introduce plugins, we'll introduce more advanced animation features. We got some fun stuff coming up. So that will just about do it for me for today. Hope you all enjoyed this. Definitely stick around. We've got another stream with Colby coming up in just a few minutes, and I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11:30, I believe it is, with more XD Daily Creative Challenge goodness. So thanks again, everyone, for joining me, and I will see you all tomorrow morning.